Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and this video is a very special one. It is my review of Avengers Endgame. This movie was amazing. I really can't say enough good things about this movie. I'm just gonna get into what I feel like about this movie. So, since I think this movie was so good, it was absolutely amazing. Since I think it was so good, I'm going to have to nitpick a little bit because I want to say something about that the movie could have done better. So I'm going to have to nitpick a little bit, but let's get into this review of this amazing movie. Now, first off, I wanted to talk about my boy Tony. Tony had such a rough time throughout the movie. It was crazy. It's no secret that Tony is my favorite Avenger. I love him. He is funny. Robert Downey Jr. is the best they could have ever chosen to play Tony Stark. I could not think of anyone better to play Tony Stark. He was amazing. And I'm so grateful that I've gotten to see him throughout all these years and all these movies, because he's great, he's so entertaining, and I will always love him for that. So the first time we see Tony is in the beginning of the movie, right after that opening scene, which I'll talk about later. We see him in space with Nebula, and they're drifting around, and and basically we find out later that it is about, I think it was 39 days or 33 days or something around that number, since Thanos had snapped and killed half of the universe. So I thought, like, 33 days, okay, that's a pretty cool, what is it called? I thought that was a good idea to have it be, like, a bit after that. Not right after Infinity War, but maybe just, like, a month or so after, which is what they did, which is what I thought they would do. But I'm really glad for that. But then we find out next that it's actually 5 years later, because after we get some scenes, it says 5 years later, and I was like, that is too much. You can't have it be 5 years after. That's insane. So I didn't like that. I think it should have at most been 2 years, but 5 years is just an insane amount. And I really liked those scenes in space that Tony had with Nebula, where they were playing with each other. That was a lot of fun. This movie was a lot more fun than I thought it would be. I went into this expecting that it would just be really dark all the time, and people are dying, and it's so sad, and we have to stop Thanos. And then in the end, it feels like we won, but we won, but it feels like we lost. And but I don't know why I expected that. This is a Marvel movie. Obviously, there's going to be fun, and there was plenty of fun in this movie, like the scenes in the beginning between Nebula and Tony, which was a lot of fun. And then we finally get to see Tony arrive on Earth. He actually gets rescued by Captain Marvel, which was pretty cool. So we get to see Tony arrive on Earth, and him and Steve finally interact with each other. There was none of that in Infinity War, and I was kind of disappointed in that. But they were setting up. Seeing Endgame, I realized that they were setting up for that, for their building up to their meetup in this movie. And I think they had some great scenes together in this movie, Tony and Steve. It was also revealed in this movie that Tony and Pepper actually have a daughter in the 5 year later thing. They were revealed to have a daughter, which I think that was a great idea. I think it was a great idea for them to have a daughter. I don't know if the daughter and Pepper will actually play any role going forward in the MCU, but I guess it would be cool to, see the daughter become another Iron Man or something. I guess I could do a video on that. And Pepper, I don't know, I think it was cool to, I'll talk about Pepper after this. But I think I'm just going to talk about the daughter now. I think it would be cool to see her, a little bit more, but I don't know if they're actually going to do anything with her now that Tony's not around. I don't really see they could do anything with her other than make her the new Iron Man sometime in the future. Now, there was this theory floating around before Endgame came out that, the Avengers would create their own Infinity Gauntlet to stop Thanos. I was never really the biggest fan of that idea, but it happened in this movie. It was executed. They made their own Infinity Gauntlet to stop Thanos, and honestly, it was really cool. Like, they went back in time, collected all the Infinity Stones, and made their own Infinity Gauntlet, and that was actually really cool. It was awesome to see the Avengers have their own Infinity Gauntlet and Thanos have nothing, but I really thought that was cool. And now it's time to talk about the death of Tony Stark. I did, first of all, I did not expect it. It was kind of sudden when Tony Stark put on the Infinity Gauntlet and said, "I am Iron Man," and he snapped his fingers, and Thanos went to dust. Everyone became dust. I was really surprised, but I did not think Tony would actually die, because afterwards Tony fell to the ground and he was sitting there, and I thought he would be okay, but no, Tony Stark died because, the power of the Infinity Gauntlet was too much for him, I guess, and that was actually how I wanted Nebula to die in this movie, but that did not happen. But that was how Tony died, and his death was handled really well. It was extremely emotional, with Peter coming over and being like, "Mr. Stark, are you okay, Mr. Stark?" And all that, and Pepper being there. I think we should have gotten also a scene where maybe War Machine or something, and Cap, and maybe also Thor came over to talk with him and were like, "Are you okay?" I think we should have gotten those characters as well being there, present at Tony's death, but I guess it was fine. But his death was handled really well, and obviously in my death predictions, I did not think he would die. I thought he would retire, but he did not retire. He actually died. So it was handled really well, and initially I didn't tear up, but then when there was these flowers, and Tony's arc reactor was in the middle, and it said, "Proof that Tony Stark has a heart." At that moment, I just teared up, and it was so sad, and his death was handled so well, and I loved it, and it's been a really great ride, seeing Robert Downey Jr. in these movies, and I really am gonna miss him. So yeah, I think it was great to have him deliver the final blow to Thanos, and I'm gonna miss seeing him in these movies. Pepper Potts did have a bigger role in the movie than I thought she would, but honestly, considering that Tony Stark died in this movie and she also had a daughter, she was also revealed to have a daughter in this movie, she didn't have that big of a role if you take that into consideration, but I thought she had a much bigger role than I thought she would, and I loved that, how her relationship with Tony was handled in this movie, and like I talked about before, I don't know if she will ever appear in the MCU again. I can't see what she would do other than maybe a few scenes with her daughter, but other than that, I can't see what she would do in the MCU if she ever were to appear again. Oh wait, actually, yes. I know what she could do going forward in the MCU if she were to appear again. She could be in the rescue armor, and she could be like the new Iron Man or something, or maybe War Machine could take up the mantle of Iron Man. I would like War Machine to become Iron Man, though, instead of Pepper. I think Pepper being Iron Man is a little bit stupid. I would like it to be either War Machine, Rhodey, or his daughter. I think his daughter's name was Morgan. So either Morgan or Rhodey, I think, would be cool, but I guess Pepper could be like this sidekick to Rhodey or Morgan, whoever is to become the new Iron Man, and she could fight crime in the rescue armor. Next up, we have Captain America, who, in this movie, oh boy, he was awesome. Like, the first time we see him, he gets the shave. That is so cool, and Captain America in this movie is probably my second favorite character. No, actually, he's my third favorite character, because my favorite was Tony, then Thanos, then Captain America. Because Captain America in this movie was handled so well. He felt so much like Captain America. He was absolutely amazing. Like, in the original Avengers movie, Captain America was my least favorite. Actually, Hawkeye was my least favorite, but then Captain America after that, because he was just kind of boring. But after Winter Soldier and Civil War, that gave so much new life to Captain America, made him so much cooler. And then Infinity War as well, with him being Nomad, and now this, where he actually became Captain America again, and he got his shield back, and he fought against the past version of himself. who the past version of himself thought he was Loki. That was just so cool when they went back in time and Captain America fought his past self. There was just so much cool stuff to talk about in this movie, considering if you were talking about Captain America. One of those cool moments was Thor wielding Mjolnir. Like, holy crap, when Thor wielded Mjolnir, that was awesome. Like, Thor was pinned down by Thanos, and then we suddenly see the hammer moving on the ground. I honestly thought it was Thor who was gonna take the hammer with flying and hit Thanos in the back of the head, but it was Captain America who, for the rest of the movie in the final fight, he used the hammer to beat stuff up, and he was just so cool. He used the hammer and the shield, and he did so much cool stuff with it. That was so cool. I loved it. I loved how he wielded Mjolnir. It was awesome. So Captain America, he's knocked to the ground, and then he stands up. This is the coolest moment of them all, even cooler than Thor wielding Mjolnir. Captain America wielding Mjolnir, sorry. I might have said Thor back then a little bit ago. Sorry, I meant Captain America wielding Mjolnir. So he stands up, and he says the line that we've been waiting for. Captain America says, "Avengers assemble." And it was so awesome. All of the Avengers just attacked Thanos and his army, and they went crazy, and there was this epic final fight in the ruins of the Avengers base, and it was so awesome. I honestly almost teared up. It was just so awesome to see all of these heroes that the MCU has built up over time face off against Thanos and his army, and Captain America finally saying, "Avengers assemble." It was so awesome. I've been waiting for him to say that line for so long. And then there was the final scene with Captain America in the movie where he becomes old. He goes back in time, and basically he returns, and he's old, and he lived his life back in the past with Peggy Carter, and I believe I actually said that in the Death Predictions video that Captain America could go back in time and live with Peggy Carter, and I said I didn't think Captain America would do that because Peggy had kids and stuff. I believe I said that in my video, but he did, so he is a selfish bastard. No, just kidding. That was a really sweet scene where he was dancing with Peggy and stuff, and then he's old. I'll talk more about it later, though, when I come to talk about Falcon and what happened between Falcon and Captain America. The comic relief of this movie was Thor. Obviously, he has been comic relief ever since Thor Ragnarok, and it was awesome. He was funny as always, and I love how, in the beginning he has the short hair, and he's like how he was in the end of, Infinity War, and basically he is pissed that he didn't go for the head when he was fighting Thanos, but then they go to fight Thanos again, and my predictions came true in my Death Predictions video, or it might have been my Avengers 4 How to Do It, I can't remember, but I said that there should be some sort of callback for, you should have gone for the head, that line, and there was. And then there was this, Thor just cut Thanos' head off with his axe, and I can't remember who it was, but someone asked, "What was that?" And then Thor said, "I went for the head." And it was so cool to just see that Thor actually went for the head this time. So then we get the 5 years later thing, and then we get to see this new Asgard, or whatever it was called, and we get to see Valkyrie, actually. But then we get to see Thor's the king, and he's just drinking beer all the time, and he has those two guys from Thor Ragnarok, and they're playing Fortnite, and it was just hilarious. And then basically Thor's this old grumpy guy, and he's got his long hair again, which I love the long hair, and he's got this long beard as well, and he's the comic relief of the movie. He's fat now. He's fat in this movie. He's fat Thor because he's drinking all those beers, and he went for the head. And I love Thor in this movie. It was pretty cool to actually see Thanos be killed twice in this movie because, if you've seen the movie Thanos, the Thanos that was actually the main villain of this movie was the past Thanos from 2014, and the Thanos we know from Infinity War actually got killed in the start of the movie by Thor, but then the second Thanos from 2014 got killed in the end by Tony, if that makes sense. It only makes sense if you've watched the movie, so... But I love that Thor went for the head this time. He was hilarious, and then that ending where it sets up Thor joining the Guardians of the Galaxy. It was fantastic. I love it. Thor joins the Guardians, Thor with the Guardians all the way. I love their chemistry, and it actually kind of sets up a rivalry between Star-Lord and Thor. Obviously, Infinity War set that up, but we could be seeing Thor becoming the new leader of the Guardians potentially after that final scene, but who knows. Now, in this movie, the most disappointing Avenger to me was Hulk. I had kind of suspected that they would go the whole Professor Hulk route, but I did not like that. I think the thing that made Hulk special to me was that the dynamic that he had, the conflict between the Hulk and Bruce Banner. That was my favorite thing about the Hulk back in the day. I loved how him and Banner were, in conflict. And I loved how that was executed. I think that was executed so well. And nowadays the Hulk is just a jokester. He was a jokester in Ragnarok. In Infinity War, the Hulk wasn't even present. And in this movie, it's Professor Hulk, which is stupid. I don't like that. I think it should have just been Bruce Banner, and then he could transform into the Hulk and something. And I think that's how it always should be. And he should never become Professor Hulk, because that is stupid. He was probably my favorite Avenger next to Iron Man in the first movie. And in Age of Ultron, I loved that battle between the Hulkbuster and the Hulk himself. The Incredible Hulk was okay, but this version of the Hulk I do not like. I do not like Professor Hulk. I think that is not the route they should have gone down. But one thing I did find cool in this movie is that Professor Hulk was actually the one to, use the gauntlet to bring everyone back. I think that was something that was really cool about him, and I think that was definitely fitted the Hulk well. And I love how Thor was like, well, okay, don't worry, I'll do it. Don't worry, it's fine. And everyone wanted to do the snap, and Thor was like, he was trying to act all like no one wanted to do it, and he had to do it because he was special or something. And I loved how it was eventually Hulk that had to do it, which that was great. Oh boy, now it's time to talk about Black Widow, who was great in this movie. I loved her. I think this is probably one of the best movies ever with her in it. Probably next to Winter Soldier and the first Avengers. This is my favorite movie with her in it. And there's a very special reason for that. I think I loved her white hair in Infinity War. Then when we get the 5 years later thing, she has kind of this mix of her red hair and the white hair, which I think was great in this movie. And a lot of the stuff Black Widow does in the movie is she spends a lot of scenes with Hawkeye, which is great because they were always, these two Avengers that were probably, the least popular, that weren't as big as these other ones, Thor, Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America. They were always kind of sidelined, I feel, and I think it was great to see these two Avengers have a lot of scenes together in this movie, because Hawkeye, and this was by far my favorite movie with Hawkeye. I'll talk about Hawkeye later, though. Now it's time to talk about Black Widow. I love how those two spend so many scenes together in this movie, and now it's time to talk about the death. One of the best scenes in the movie. It could even be up as a contender of top 3. This scene was handled so well. Basically, Clint, Barton, and Natasha Romanoff arrive at the place where, the Red Skull. Also, we get to see the Red Skull again. It was really cool. So they arrive where the Red Skull is to, get the Soul Stone. It was the Soul Stone, I think. And just like Gamora, they had to sacrifice someone they loved. And then there was this heartbreaking scene where both Hawkeye and Black Widow tried to sacrifice themselves for the other. They were punching each other out of the way, so they got to jump down and sacrifice themselves. And they were fighting each other, trying to push each other out of the way, so they got to jump down, so they got to kill themselves and sacrifice themselves for the other. And in the end, I actually thought it was going to be Hawkeye who was going to jump out, because he ran over and he began to jump, but Black Widow chased him, and they fell down the mountain together. And Hawkeye was holding on to Black Widow, and then Black Widow lets go and plummets to her death. Now, I didn't tear up during this scene. It was really sad that she died, and I think it definitely served as, basically, it gave Hawkeye a lot of character development, and I think it was a fantastically built scene how they were arguing to get each other out of the way. And the reason probably it wasn't as sad for me is that it was basically like a ripoff of Gamora's death, where she was killed by Thanos, except in this, she sacrificed herself instead of, well, got murdered. But I think that was what was holding me back for this scene being too sad for me, because it had been done before, the same type of death. I think it was even the same music playing, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that though. But yeah, I think it was sad to lose one of the original Avengers. This was like the first important death in the movie also. Alright, now I wanted to talk about the opening scene. The scene where, well, we get to see Hawkeye training with his daughter to, become good at doing bow and arrow stuff. And basically, his daughter vanishes, his family vanishes, and they were dusted like a lot of other people. So that was sad, and it was a great way to open up the movie. I even heard the guy next to me say after this scene was done, wow, what a way to start the movie. And that was what I was thinking as well. And when I saw that scene, I knew that this movie was going to be something special for Hawkeye, and it was. And I'm also happy to see that the Ronin was in the movie, or that Clint Barton became Ronin, although I don't think the name Ronin was even said in the movie, but the costume looked really cool. I kind of wish that was the costume he had for the whole movie, because it looked actually really, really cool. But yeah, so I think this movie is the best adaptation of Hawkeye I have ever seen in any movie. He was so interesting in this movie, from his family to his interactions with the other Avengers. He wasn't just boring or stupid in this movie. He actually had some cool scenes with his family and how he was a killer now, and the scene with Black Widow also dying and how he dealt with that aftermath. I think it was great. I loved it. He was awesome in this movie, and he is not my least favorite Avenger anymore. I may do like an all Avengers ranked video sometime, I don't know, but he's definitely not my least favorite Avenger anymore, because this movie, he was awesome. Captain Marvel, I expected something more from her in this movie, because I did not like how she was handled. Like, she wasn't like, she found the ship with Tony and Nebula in it, she brought it to Earth, then she kind of just disappeared for a while, and then she returns in the third act to battle Thanos. And that's basically it. She had nothing to do in the plot. Like, she's the newest Avenger, and at least she got a cool fight against Thanos, though. But she's the newest Avenger. I think she should have definitely had more of an impact to the story. She went to, face Thanos as well, and then she kind of just disappeared and returned in the third act. When she returned in the third act, and she also had the new haircut and stuff, I completely forgot that she was even in the movie. I was like, oh my god, yes, Captain Marvel is in this movie. I forgot. And I bet I wouldn't have noticed if she hadn't returned in the third act. Only when I was making this video, when I was finding the pictures, and I was like, oh my god, yes, Captain Marvel, what happened to her? I think that was probably when I would have noticed. So she was very forgettable in this movie and very disappointing. Spider-Man was one of the characters that was dusted in Infinity War. He had a really sad death, but he did come back in the third act when, Hulk snapped the Infinity Gauntlet, or Professor Hulk as he goes by now. So he didn't really do much in this movie, but I really liked the scene between him and Tony about when Tony died. I really liked how they were, he was like, no, Mr. Stark, no. It would have been funny if Mr. Stark had said, or if Tony had said, I don't feel so good, but again, it would kind of ruin the death, but it would have been a nice callback, though. Ant-Man alongside Hawkeye is another character that was absent from Infinity War, and I was really glad to see that both Ant-Man and Hawkeye got really big roles in this movie. I thought throughout the movie that maybe Ant-Man and Hawkeye got little too big of a role in this movie, but considering they weren't in Infinity War, I think it is fair to have them have such a big role in this movie. And there was this theory that I really liked, that Ant-Man was a Skrull, and sadly that wasn't true, but I guess it wouldn't really have worked for the movie if Ant-Man was a Skrull anyways, so yeah, I guess it's fine, but I was kind of disappointed to see that no one at all in this movie was a Skrull. I think someone should have definitely been a Skrull in this movie, and it didn't have to be Ant-Man, but just someone, maybe like, I don't know, just someone should have been a Skrull, but yeah, I guess it was fine that Ant-Man wasn't a Skrull. And I think it was really cool how it was Ant-Man who actually helped them get back in time. I never imagined that the way they would go back in time was entering the quantum realm and exiting it, at another time. I never really thought about that. I thought it would have something to do with the time stone, but no, it didn't. It had something to do with that, which is kind of weird because they needed Pym particles to get back to the present day, but they could have just gotten the time stone and used that to go back to present day. I don't know if you can do that, but you probably can, so I don't know why they would still need Pym particles, but whatever. I really like the time traveling scenes, especially the one back to the first Avengers where Loki got away with the Tesseract, Captain America fought his past self. It was just, I think it was really cool, and another really cool scene was when Tony went back in time and spoke with his dad and hugged him like an awkward hug. I like that a lot, and yeah, I miss Tony. And no, Ant-Man did not shrink himself into Thanos' asshole and become big again. No, just no. But that scene he had with Cassie, where he, met Cassie again, that was really nice. I think that was really nice. I am so happy that my hopes of Nebula having a big role in this movie came true. Like, I am the happiest person. I was the happiest person on Earth in the end of that movie, because Nebula had such a big role in this movie, and I loved it. It is exactly what I wanted, because of course she's gonna have a big role in a movie about Thanos. Although my theory about how Nebula would die didn't happen, it was kind of like what happened with Tony instead, but yeah, it didn't happen. It would have been cool if it happened with Nebula instead, but it happened with Tony. I guess that's fine that Tony died. It was really sad anyways, but I'm glad Nebula had a big role in the movie. Bucky Barnes was also another character that was resurrected from the dust. He didn't do much in this movie, but I'm not actually going to talk about Bucky Barnes much here. I'm going to talk about what his potential was and how he could have become the next Captain America, but no. Of course Marvel had to give that title to another character. I mentioned it with Captain America. I was going to talk about the old Captain America later, and I am. When I'm getting to Falcon, don't worry, I'm going to talk about the old Captain America. Just you wait. And what that old Captain America did to Falcon, just wait. Doctor Strange, I really like that scene where he came back from the dust and Tony was like, you said there was 14 million to 1, is this the one where we win? And he said, if I tell you it won't happen, which that's kind of stupid. I think that's kind of a stupid line because, obviously that means they're gonna win. So if they were gonna lose, then Doctor Strange could just say, this is the one where we're gonna lose, and it won't happen. So I think that line was kind of stupid, but then we get a scene later where he shows one finger to Tony, which basically signals that this is the one reality where, they win. Rocket Raccoon also didn't do much in this movie. He was just kind of there, and I did like how he went with Thor to Asgard, though, where they had to get the reality stone, I think it was. I did like that scene, but other than that, Rocket didn't really do much, and I also like how in the end he was there when, Thor was joining the Guardians of the Galaxy. Speaking of the Guardians, Star-Lord, I really like that scene where after he came back from the dust, he met Gamora, the past version from 2014, and he thought it was the Gamora from present day. I think that could have, or the Gamora that died, that was killed by Thanos. I think they could have definitely explored that a lot more, explored how that was a lot more with, that thing with Gamora and Star-Lord, of how he was like, oh, and that was like the Pesca more. I think they could have explored that more. And I also like that conflict in the end between Thor and him. The Wasp, I'm so glad she came back. Honestly, I'm glad all the people that were dusted came back, because, I mean, if they had stayed dead, then there would be no MCU. If they had stayed that would be horrible. Like Spider-Man and Black Panther and the Wasp and all those guys, I'm so glad they came back, because they're so new to the MCU, and it would just be horrible for them to be removed already. Then there is War Machine, another character that didn't do much. I mean, he was in some scenes and he was in the final fight and stuff, but again, he didn't really do much. But I really hope that in the future that he, helps lead the new MCU. I was about to say. Well, I guess you could say the new MCU as well. He leads Phase 4 and also maybe is a part of the new Avengers. Now we're here, boys. It is the Falcon. I've been waiting to talk about this guy. When he came back, everything up to the ending was good. But then we get the ending, where the old Captain America gives Falcon the shield and tells him to be the new Captain America. Bullshit! I do not accept this. It has to be Bucky. Why is it Falcon? He is not going to be the new Captain America. Bucky has training as a super soldier. He has been Captain America's best friend since forever. Not really, but he has been Captain America's best friend for a long time. It makes so much more sense for him to get the shield and not Falcon. It is stupid. Why does Falcon get the shield? It does not make any sense. I don't like it. Don't do it. Don't make him the new Captain America. Make it that he gives it to Bucky or something. I don't want him to be the new Captain America. It doesn't work. Alright, boys, here we are. I've been waiting to talk about this thick boy, and here we are. Thanos was not good in this movie. No, he was not good. I mean, of course, Josh Brolin played him perfectly. There was no one else that could play Thanos so well. I loved him in his first scene where he was walking through that cornfield, and basically the Avengers came, and I think everything was good up to then, and how he had turned the Infinity Stones into atoms. I think that was so cool, and I thought it was setting up for a movie where the Avengers would have to stop him without the Infinity Stones. But then Thor kills him, and I was like, what? But then, of course, the movie couldn't do without Thanos. So they got Thanos from 2014 and brought him to present day. And he had no history with the Avengers or nothing. And I think that was kind of disappointing. I would rather have it be the Thanos from present day. I mean, sure, I like the callback with Thor going for the head, but I would rather have it be Thanos from the present day facing off against the Avengers than 2014 Thanos. But I guess it's fine. Thanos was amazing in this movie anyways, and I love his new line, which was like, I am inevitable, and then Tony comes in, I am Iron Man. I love this movie. It is great, and Thanos was great, other than the fact that he was from 2014. If he had just been the Thanos from Infinity War, I would have loved him so much, and I still love him incredibly, but there's just that tiny little thing. And then there's another one of my favorite scenes from the movie, which is where Thanos gets dusted right after Tony snapped his fingers, like that. And I love how Thanos had no reaction at all. He just sat down. He knew he was going to die. He just sat down and looked into the distance as he dusted away. I love how he didn't say anything, because of course you wouldn't do that. You would just sit down. Like a normal person wouldn't be like, well, looks like this is the end. You would sit down and you would be like, oh, I'm going to die now. And you would think about all the stuff you've done in your life. And I love this. And can I just say, yes, Thanos actually died. I did not want him to get locked up somewhere. That is stupid. Like, he's Thanos. You shouldn't get... It would be so anticlimactic if he was just knocked down and Iron Man was like, well, time to get you locked up or something. That's stupid. So I'm glad he died. And... I'm done now. I have reviewed Avengers Endgame. This is by far my longest video ever. My voice is so tired right now. I love this movie. You could just put all the things I said together. Everything that I said that I didn't like, other than probably Professor Hulk and then Sam becoming Captain America, was nitpicky. And so those are really my only two gripes with the movie. The others are nitpicks. This movie was great, and I am tired now. I'm gonna do something else, and thank you for watching, if you even watched this. Be sure to leave video ideas in the description. My Instagram is on screen, and I guess, follow my second channel, Pokemon channel, and haven't posted there in a while, so yeah, bye.